We want to give a massive thank you to our sponsors, Hublot. Hublot is celebrating its association with the UEFA Euro 2020 tournament by presenting a dazzling array of new releases, including the official timepiece of the UEFA Euro 2020 European Championship, the Big Bang E connected watch, as well as a brand new podcast featuring interviews with the greatest sporting icons, topping it off with an NFT for the first 200 customers to purchase the watch. Hublot loves football.
I've been on a late night grind, city lights, I'm on a late night ride. I got my drink on the rocks and my neck on ice. Time is money, so we tell them don't waste my time. Watching the hands ticking on my Hublot, yeah. Big bang like I soon blow, yeah. Tailor fit for when I do road. On a late night vibe, yeah, you know. I've been watching the hands ticking on my Hublot, yeah. Big bang like I soon blow, yeah. Tailor fitted with my Euro. On a late night vibe, yeah, you know, yeah. It's a vibe, we vibing late night, yeah. It's a vibe, we vibing late night.
It's Joel Beya here alongside Stephen Howson, and we are back for Late Night Vibe, a show sponsored by Hublot. Our sponsors, thank you very much, and we've got a big one today. This ain't just a regular guest. This is the inside information that you get from one of the biggest clubs in the world, not Arsenal. We're talking to the assistant manager at Manchester United, Mr. Mick Phelan. How you doing? You okay?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, excellent.
Listen,
Have you enjoyed the Euros?
What'd you say?
How have you enjoyed the Euros?
I've actually, I've enjoyed it a lot. You know, I wasn't expecting as much as what it's delivered, to be fair. So even the group stages, they were quite exciting for a change. Normally they're a bit cagey, but you know, they've all come with a certain ethos, which is to attack and play and score goals. So it's been interesting.
So England got to the final, didn't quite have enough to overcome Italy in the final of the Euros. Italy, European champions. Do you think there's something in maybe reaching a semi-final, then reaching a final that's part of the building process for England?
Yeah, I think everything in life is a building block, you know, and with England to go that one step further all the time is showing signs of improvement. And I think to get into the final is one thing, winning it is another. But I think on the day it's 50-50. You take what comes your way, and really from England's point of view, just getting there has really enlightened everybody and promises a lot for the future.
Surely now that makes them favourites for the World Cup next year, right? You would think that they know each other better. The team's only going to get better. The individuals, the players.
Well, because of the tournament coming round like it did, you know, with the gap year sort of thing, and then it brought the World Cup a lot nearer. I'm sure this squad that Gareth's put together will be available, barring injuries and barring a hectic season. Then he will have much of the same. Mm-hmm. So a year's experience is invaluable going into any tournament. But they'll be a year older as well, you know, and they'll learn from what they've been doing together over this period's time and really take it into the next competition, and probably take into that competition the fact that they can achieve. You know, it's not just a dream, they can achieve something. So that would be really good and really positive.
All right, Mike, I must say, absolute privilege. Current assistant manager of Manchester United, as I mentioned earlier. Briefly had a bit of a chat to you in Singapore as we was out there on pre-season. A bit of a relaxed one, that was.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
This one, no travel. We're going as far as Derby, I believe.
First things first, Derby, yeah.
What's the difference in preparation going to be like for you?
Well, just because of the circumstances, really. We can't take any chances of sort of taking ourselves outside of our environment, really. What we have tried to do is make sure that we're comfortable at the training facility. And then we obviously pop out of there and create this word we keep hearing, the bubble elsewhere. So we've got plenty of pre-season games planned. We are going away in the country for a few days here and there, just to break up the scenery, really. I think that's really important because we've been at Carrington now on and off for near on 18 months, really. So I think it's really important that we change the scenery a little bit when we can. But obviously we can protect ourselves and protect our players in that environment. And once we get all the players back, of course, from their international duties, then we'll have the full squad ready to take on the season ahead.
What was the major challenges of the last 18 months running a team? Obviously, early part of COVID, there was a lot of fear around. I think the fears are laid a little bit. It's more of the admin side.
Yeah, we were probably fortunate in a way from the point of view that football continued when everybody else was probably put into their categories of what they can and can't do. We had that little bit of freedom of being at home, travelling in our cars, turning up at the training ground, training, going back home, and just using home and training facility as your lifestyle for a period of time. But at least we got out there and we trained. So it's been difficult. The planning has been hard. We've had to use a lot of planning based on medical issues and what we can and can't do. We've followed all the protocols, which have been forever changing. They've been, manipulated, with sort of interference from government issued sort of structure, and then we've had to develop that within what we need to do. Yeah, we've had cases of testing positive. I think most clubs have suffered that one, but it's been handled exceptionally well, very professional by the football club. I think the football club itself have done really well to maintain everybody's role at the club, and that's not just on the football side, that's on the staff side as well. So I think they've been a credit in that area, that everybody has continued to be part of something, even though they've not been around the training ground or Old Trafford.
Now, going back to the fundamentals, you've been embedded at the club for many, many years as a player, as a coach, etc. You're going into a new season. What basics are you looking for in a player in order for you to go, yep, he deserves his opportunity? Because I'm sure that doesn't change through the 90s, the noughties, the whatever.
No, what we want is obviously improvement from year on year. Okay. And that's individually, collectively, and everything like that. So we'll set our stall out to probably change one or two things, learn our lessons from previous seasons, but challenge the players to do better. And then obviously the opposite challenge to that is who is out there that wants to really make a difference, who's out there that wants their chance at being a Manchester United player. So, pre-season is actually a very good time to mix those sorts of groups together, because you can have a look at the present state of affairs, but you can also introduce it with a little bit of youth and give it that extra dimension. So it gives you an opportunity to just prepare but chill out at the same time, because you've got that breathing space before competition really starts. But I think it's just getting the message across that everybody starts afresh. You finished strong last year. There's nothing that says you're going to start that well this year. You've just got to prepare as well as you can and look forward to that first challenge, which is for us Leeds. So
what then makes a Man United player then? Because there's players that are brilliant up and down the country. What is that je ne sais quoi that you guys look for?
Well, talent's one thing, but obviously work ethic is another. I think that's really important. I think the character of somebody, can they handle it? Can they handle, being a Manchester United player? For me, Manchester United brings out the best and worst in people. It's got those sort of parts to it which 1 minute you're a star, the next minute you're a failure, and it happens in the blink of an eye. So you're constantly being scrutinised, you're constantly under the watch of other people who are always telling you how to do something, what to do, when to do it. They're usually better than you, or all this sort of thing. So you have to be strong mentally. You have to be tough. Weaknesses are always there in young players. They're there in senior players. But from a coach's point of view, you have to manage that. You have to bring them down to the level whereby playing football is the best thing you can do. Enjoy it, get on with it. Don't really bother about the outside influence. It's very difficult to do that.
I was going to say, it sounds easy to say that.
But it's there. I think once you're in and you're training and you're playing, that is the best place to be. And don't get too emotional about everything. Don't be too high, don't be too low. Find your space and live it. I think that's really important when you're at a big club like Manchester United, where everybody wants a bit of you.
Wow.
Can you describe a little bit what that's like? Obviously, he was a successful player at Manchester United. Excuse me. And now you've been a part of the coaching staff for a couple of decades now. Can you describe what that does to some players? Because we see players come in that you think are going to be able to handle this, and perhaps they're not. Or what's maybe special about those who can?
I think the difference between sort of my time and the time now is probably the money issue. You know, how much you pay for a player usually brings its own issues. You know, if you're spending 8 million on somebody and you're spending 80 million on another, I think supporters tend to sort of think, well, for 80 million we're getting this, for 8 million we're getting that. So there's a judgment call
we want it
straight
now.
away. Yeah, and we want it now. And I think it's, at Manchester United, it's a case of, yes, there are star players, but there are also players who are developing and wanting to be better players, and they're wanting to develop into serious professional footballers. So we have to get the balance right. I think that's really important. But everything has to be successful because it is Manchester United. So you're pushed and pushed and pushed. And it doesn't matter whether you're 18 years of age or you're 38 years of age, the same demands are there. Sometimes at 18 you've got to grow up a little bit quicker. Because the professional game doesn't allow you not to. You know, so we tend to forget sometimes that learning curve some players are on, and others that are probably already experienced enough to do better, to know better.
Yeah.
But you've got to get the balance. That's the important thing.
United last season had the shortest pre-season.
Yeah.
We had the shortest break in between seasons. We had the highest frequency of matches over the Christmas period. We had significant injuries to a lot of the first team squad. We still did pretty well, I would say, on the grand scheme of things. A little bit disappointed not to come away with the trophy in Europe. I think that you'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Coming second in the league, pretty decent achievement. Obviously, we want more for next season. With those things being hopefully now behind us, what can we look forward to from this United team next season?
Well, one thing for sure is we survived all that last season. It was hectic, but I've always felt as though if you want to be a Manchester United player or you want to be involved with Manchester United, you've got to look at the season from the beginning to the end, which could be 60 odd games long. Yeah. That means that you're doing something right and you're in competitions and you're getting all the way through to the end. That's vitally important. So you set your mindset now into that is the challenge. You know, it's not I'll play 20 games. No, your first thought is I'm playing 60 games. If you go into it that way, then I think you've got a group of players that are really determined to go from August to May and beyond. So based on last season, it was hectic. It was hard to plan it. It was ups and downs in moments. You know, we reached the pinnacle. We got to the top of the league. We didn't stay there as long as we anticipated we would, but we made up ground on the previous season. So we took everything in our stride really, and we've encouraged the players to focus on getting better, to do more, and to get that winning mentality, enjoy the winning part of it. That's what we're there for. But also learn from the losing part of it, because believe you me, there's not many teams go through a season where they don't lose football matches. It's how you handle it at the end of the day.
Except the Invincibles.
Well, we lost 6 that year.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's an exception, isn't it?
Yeah. It's funny when you speak, Mick, you actually sound like Rio. You sound like the elements that you're talking about is literally
the graduates of the same school, my mate.
Literally, you can hear it. Now, I'm going to bring you back a little bit, right? Yeah. When he walked through and you saw him at the ground, at Man United training ground, we spoke about the price tag and the pressures that can come. How did he handle himself?
Was you reserve manager, by the way?
I was there, yeah. I was there at Man United when he came in, yeah.
So when he came in, obviously there's a big price tag on him. You know, buzzing, most expensive defender in the world. What stood out when you saw him, and what were his good qualities and his bad qualities?
Well, his good qualities was the fact that he was a player. You know, his physique, he's sort of established himself as a top centre half. Otherwise, Man United wouldn't have entertained going after him. Yeah. But I think what he understood pretty quickly was the enormity of the role and the enormity of the position he was coming into. You know, he'd done his own work, and he probably felt as though the next step in his career was to have that club behind him, you know. And also, I think
he's more serious, isn't he, than I think people give him credit for.
When he's playing football.
Yeah, no, Rio was conscientious You know what I mean? He thought the game. You know, he had an opinion on the game, which is unusual sometimes when you come into a different club. But he imposed himself in there, and he had the building blocks to get better. It wasn't just the finished deal. There was more. And I think that's what Manchester United saw in him, and that's why they paid so much. And obviously his career path went from, you know, zero to hero in a way, and led by example, which is always important.
Go on, tell us. So what were the things that you thought, ooh, he's got to watch out for that. He might go south if this carries on. You can be honest.
Rio always liked the silkiness of the game. He liked the silky skills and things like that. So he's, not that he had many himself, but
he'll tell you differently.
He did enjoy seeing players express themselves.
Okay.
And he was determined as well as a guy to express his opinion to the younger element. You know, and I think he developed leadership qualities, to be perfectly honest. Within that dressing room was full of leaders, but he became sort of one of those, and then obviously became probably influential in the development of others. So
that's a good thing.
So he's done well. That's a good thing. But I think it took him time, because whilst you're doing all that, you've got to establish yourself as the number one in the team, you know, or the centre back. And you know, I'm sure at times he would have been nervous. I know for a fact at times he was nervous in some of the big games, but sometimes that's a good thing. But from Rio's point of view, he asked questions. You know, he was determined to get the answers. If he couldn't get them, he'd find out what they were. But also, you know, he had elements of nerves in big games, which he disguised reasonably well.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, you know, that first touch, that first header, you know, that first marking job that he had to do, he was probably anxious at times, but experience overcomes that.
There's three things we're going to tie in here, and it's all about European competition. And there's another one I'm going to throw in.
Have you noticed what we're doing here? It's just like back and forth, isn't it? But yeah, go on.
Before I talk about European Cups, and perhaps, I'm sure you'll agree, the greatest achievement in the history of association football, which was?
Cup Winners' Cup final.
There we go, right. I want to talk about Edinson Cavani. Did he surprise you how good he was?
No, he didn't surprise me how good he was, because, you know, previously he'd been playing in European football with a top club, so he had all the ingredients to come to Manchester United. What we wanted from him was that experience, but determination and winning mentality, and that seniorship. You know, he was a senior player, so to bring him on board was a no-brainer. What was interesting was actually trying to get that over to Edinson, that he still had that in him.
Really?
You know, from the point of view of going on that journey again. I don't mean that his ability or anything. It was sort of, do you want to go again? Do you want to step into that arena? Do you want to really be challenged again? And he was fantastic. He was fantastic. Even though, you know, at times his English wasn't the best, but he understood football. He taught football. And the club sold it to him, and the staff sold it to him, the manager sold it to him. And to be honest, I think he's been a breath of fresh air, to be honest. He's come in and just shown everybody that work ethic is massive, and you get your rewards out of it, which is scoring goals.
Now, we don't usually hear you talk about other players because it's not your job, right? You're at Manchester United.
It's my job to talk about players all the time, but certain players that we don't have.
Yeah, and I don't mean in a transfer element. I mean in general. What kind of players currently playing do you look at and you go, my word, this element of his game is absolutely brilliant, or that element of the game? Because you guys will give examples about players all the time.
Yeah, you look at players that, you know, depending on positions as to what they should bring, you know. Yeah. Is a defender these days, or is he more of a midfield player playing at the back who can play with the ball, bring it out from the back, or is he a defender that stops the ball going in the net rather than sort of create something at the other end? From a midfield point of view, you want creativity, you want character, you want somebody who can, you know, create tempo.
Such as?
So you talk, you know, I can relate to players like Paul Scholes and things like that who could create a tempo in a football match. There aren't many Paul Scholes out there, but you certainly now are getting a midfield player now who's pretty specific rather than a midfield player. That's my view on it. You know, we used to talk about, can you play midfield? Is he a midfield player? Which meant Can he defend? Can he attack? Can he pass
Now
the
it's
ball?
number 6,
Now,
8.
yes. Now we talk.
I can see you're trying to get a name.
Now we talk numbers.
Every journalist watching this is like, go on.
No, I'm not giving you names.
So there's not players that you look at. It could be
Yeah,
someone
we look
from
at players
West Ham.
all the time.
It could be someone from, do you know what I mean?
Usually the best time you get to see a player is when you play against them. So, every time you play in the Premier League, you're always analysing the opposition first and foremost, because you know what your players can do and what they can achieve. But sometimes when you're watching the opposition or during that game, you feel something that, I didn't quite realise that he had that quality. So it could be a defender, it could be a forward. Forwards are like gold dust, you know what I mean? If especially if you've got a goal scoring forward. But we don't say centre forward anymore. They're more forwards. So that means you could be one of 3, you could be one of 2, you could be just one up front, So they bring all different qualities now, technically and tactically. So we're always on the lookout for the best players, but we're also on the lookout for players that make a difference, but the ones that show character and enthusiasm and can really fit into that team structure and bring that quality to Man United.
Sorry, I was going to say, Mick's just showing me why he is where he is, because he answered that without answering.
That was a political answer, to be honest.
You know what I mean? Like,
Sorry for everyone who writes in the Metro and the Mirror, because I know that's where you get your news.
Oh,
Not
mate,
today,
I was almost there.
What's your process of watching a game then? So if you say you studying tape, you're probably getting clips of
it's developed over the years. I mean, when I first started coaching, it was mainly video and playback and fast forward, rewind, all that sort of thing. And analysts were just coming into the scene then, but there were probably people who were just trying it out. They were just finding a way through it. And then it's developed pretty quickly after that with technology, and now we have departments which take care of all that. You don't sometimes now watch a 90-minute game or a 94-minute game anymore. You still can do it, but in a way it's broken down into certain categories now, and that's done for you by a department. They roughly know what you're looking for because we work together, so they get an understanding of what you would be thinking and what you would be looking at. But in the main, we see snippets more than the actual whole thing, and that's time consuming. If you're watching 90-minute games all the time and you're watching lots of games, for me personally, I find it hard because the more games you watch, everything becomes the same in your head. It's hard to differentiate what you're actually watching. But when it's broken down, I'm sure your viewers and what have you, they like to see the elements which are the goals or the creativity, or they don't want sometimes the full game anymore. They find that, we can do other things in between. So they will, with the technology and the phones and the computers now, it's quick hits. So from those quick hits, they can determine what's going on. Whereas we go a bit deeper than that with people who can deliver stuff to us now, not only for the coaching staff, but for the players as well. Because the players are far more into the technology now, and the players want to know more about their game and even their team, what their team is doing, but also their units. If you have a defensive unit, midfield unit, attacking unit, they want to see, or the good ones, the ones that want to develop, they want to see more of it.
Who's the most obsessive video watcher at the club?
That's a good question.
So I would think the coaches are responsible sometimes for giving individual feedback, but also the players like Harry Maguire, who wants to develop the leadership qualities and things like that, are always wanting more information. And also, it's not just the English. I think the overseas players that come into Manchester United want to know what Manchester United is all about, and sometimes they only find that out by watching clips, watching things. We can go back years to Patrice Evra, these types of players. Patrice came from France. He was a small player, a bit fragile at times, probably just finding out as he was playing what it was like to play for Manchester United. But all of a sudden, he embraced the culture of Manchester United, what it meant to be a player. And he grew in stature from that, from sort of finding out the hard way. He suddenly started to understand Manchester United and what it meant to people to be a supporter, what it meant for players to play there, what you had to do better than most people
in order to
keep going.
Do you know what he did to learn?
Well, he probably learned from trying to read newspapers and learning about Manchester, the books and the videos of Manchester, and then obviously watch games, a few games here and there.
I asked him, because it was in the papers at one point that he'd go to the museum and stuff like that, and I said, was that true? And he went, yeah, but I also used to take Bobby Charlton out for dinner. And I went, wow, how cool's that?
There you go.
Wow.
He goes,
I didn't know that, but I think that tells you a little bit about Manchester United as well, that can happen. I don't know I can't comment on what happens at other football clubs, but certainly Manchester United had that huge feel of being sort of international, multinational football club, yet when you broke it all down, it was so tiny that it was family. And really, when you're involved in it 24/7, it does become your family, because you see the players, you see the staff more than probably you see your own children and your own, because it's all encompassing it, and it just grabs you.
Rio talks a lot about the dinner lady, a woman. He's always mentioning, what's her name again?
I can't remember.
I don't know if it's Carol. I don't want to get it wrong, but he's always talking about the family side of things, etc. I want to move on to another part, but I don't know if you got a question you wanted to ask.
Yeah, so obviously everyone knows 1991 Cup Winners' Cup final is one of the biggest achievements, bigger than anything else that ever did. Right?
He's looking at me like,
Rotterdam.
Take me back to Rotterdam, Mike. Talk to me about that game. Obviously, Johan Cruyff.
It was Man United, Barcelona, two massive clubs. Our route to the final, was sort of, we didn't travel massively. We didn't go around Europe playing games. We had a couple of.
Do you know Wrexham
games.
did not win the Welsh Cup to be in that?
No, I didn't know that. No,
I think
you just assumed that.
Hereford won it, but because they're not a Welsh team, Wrexham.
Oh right, okay.
How mad's that?
Right. Well, we found ourselves in the final and obviously coming up against Barcelona, which had some seriously good players in their team, and we had some of our own as well. But I think what stands out most about Rotterdam was how important it was for us to really step over that line of winning something. We just won the FA Cup, and that was the stepping stone to really say, now we're serious. We've got to do better. We've got to do more. And there was no better place than actually doing it in Europe. Obviously, our aim really was to win the league, but that was coming. We felt as though that was coming, but it wasn't probably at that moment in time. But to go and play Barcelona in Rotterdam, and by the way, the weather was horrendous the whole game. But what I can vaguely remember about it, and I've not actually watched the game since I played in it. I've never watched it fully. I've seen bits of it, but just never got round to doing it. But it was the actual fact that once we boarded the plane to go, we had a feeling that we weren't coming back empty-handed. It was a strange feeling, but because of the togetherness of the group and the way we'd been together, it just seemed natural that it was gonna fall the right way. It was a difficult game, to be honest. It wasn't easy. The way we won the game was great. It was pretty exciting.
They won the Champions League the year after. That was known as their dream team.
Yeah, that's right. But for us, it was a case of the stepping stone. It was the next level. It was the next thing to do. And I thought the group of players we had at that time really fancied pushing on. Let's get this done. Let's get it won. The support was magnificent. I mean, it was probably 3/4 Man United and 1/4 Barcelona. But once we'd won, I do remember the bit where we just had Man United fans in the stadium. It was like quickly the Barcelona fans moved out. We were celebrating, and it was just purely red, the place, and it was a magical moment. It really, celebrated hard, partied hard,
I'm sure.
which you do because you enjoyed the winning. But it was really, really good. I mean, I had a drug test after the game, and I didn't get back to the hotel well later. All the team had left. I mean, they were back at the hotel, but the lights were switched off at the stadium, and I was still sat there trying to give a sample and what have you. So I was just getting ready to get in a cab when everything happened and flowed. So we got back there, and the rest is history, really. We enjoyed the moment.
Now, Mick, for many years, people always ask you questions about Fergie.
right? Or Sir Alex, shall I say. But now I want to ask you, what did Sir Alex see in you as an individual? Because people might not ask you that too much.
The simple answer to the question is I don't know. All I do know is that he chose me for specific roles within his, his coaching team. And that started off by
But you don't spend 4 decades at Manchester United.
No, but he invited me in. I was released from Stockport. Mm-hmm. I was assistant manager at Stockport, and that didn't go according to plan. And then suddenly you find yourself being offered a job at Manchester United, which probably turned out to be the best thing Stockport ever did for me, to be perfectly honest. Yeah. But going in there as sort of reserve team coach, that they were called reserves then, so going in and learning my trade as reserve team coach, which gave me a season really to develop, and he encouraged me to do that. Then obviously I was promoted up pretty quickly into that first team environment. Now, I haven't got an answer to why he chose me, but he obviously felt as though I knew a little bit about the club, I knew a little bit about being a player at the football club, and my experiences could be passed on. And not all my experiences were good as a player. I had moments when I was public enemy number 1, from the Stretford end and what have you, but it was character building, it was something that I had to go through. So I think he probably saw me being able to pass on that sort of feelings that I got for the football club, and that it's not all plain sailing. There are things that you have to deal with.
There's a different angle on that then, because obviously asking why does Sir Alex Ferguson give you a job is probably a difficult one. What are your non-negotiables as a coach at Manchester United then? Things that you just go, this is...
That's a good question. I've never really thought of myself as being, I will accept this but I won't accept that, because I think over a period of time my skills have developed into trying to be progressive, trying to be humble enough to sort of accept when I'm wrong and accept when I'm not getting what I really want. But I think the game's developed now and players have developed now where it's very, very difficult to be really aggressive, and I don't think we live in a world now where we can be the dominant one as such. I think it's more of a collaboration now than anything. So we have to discuss things, so when I'm feeling frustrated, that's because I've had more of the good than the bad. I've had, the players that I've been surrounded by and the players, what they've given has made them successful. So that's my starting point. If you're asking me what's accepted, what's not, standards, definitely standards on the training ground, which I expect, that players playing for Manchester United can do, and sometimes we get it better from the lads that have been in the academy system, or they've been in the system and they come through, so their standards have flowed through into the first team. The lads that come in from outside, I expect them to quickly gain standards acceptable to Manchester United.
What's that quality, intensity, tempo, that sort of
Yeah. Winning mentality is got to be there because it's a professional game, but it's also develop your knowledge on the game, develop your career, develop your skills to be better than what they were yesterday. I think that was important, and that's one thing as a coach I've always tried to do, is challenge the players. It's a little bit different now because there are other coaches there now. I don't do as much of the coaching, if any, now, but I analyse more. My problem now is I'm far more impatient now than I was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I had that feeling then that due to the longevity of Sir Alex, you could progress, you could work at it. His challenge was to win, of course, but he gave you the opportunity to work. So you felt as though there was always tomorrow and the day after and the day after, so you could plan and execute. The game changed a little bit, and suddenly it's win, and you're judged on, last weekend. It comes quickly, so you're only as good as your last game, that type of thing.
Do you as a coaching staff feel that then? Because I see the increased reactivity of the fan base, whether that's real or whether it's just online, but it's certainly a thing. Are you guys feeling that it swings so much on the back of one game?
I think it's an individual thing. I don't think it's a collective. Certainly, as a manager, you feel game to game, but I think you believe in your ability, which is we're going to win more than we lose. Being at Manchester United, that's the objective, and have better Saturday nights than crappy Saturday nights. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. But I think everybody feels it differently. But then it depends on the leadership as to what matters, what really matters. You know, and the present structure right now with the coaching staff and the manager Ollie, there's a nice blend of youth and experience in there from the coaching point of view. There's a lot of determination in there, but there's a lot of education in there. You know, there's a lot of different things being used. Technology is huge. I'm not a great techno phobe or anything like that. You know, I'm still pen and paper sometimes and conversation and communication that way. But now we've got technology which changes all that. So even for me, I'm still developing that side of it. But I know the people are terrific on it. You know, coding and analysing and delivering certain things to football players. So I find now with my experience and my age, I can actually, I'm quite happy to let those people get on with it. A little bit like Sir Alex did with his coaching staff. He was the head guy, but everything pointed towards him making the decisions. But we were the team that brought that to his attention, delivered on that. It's very much similar to that now, where we trust the people that we work with to do their utmost, their best, to deliver to the players so that they're prepared to perform. End of.
In the last 2 decades, and obviously there's been a ton of technological advancements. If you had to pick one of them to have had the biggest impacts, either on yourself as a coach or on the players that you do coach, which one would you say it is?
Probably being able to live stream or monitor things as they happen. You know, it's instant feedback. It's instant feedback now. So we don't have to wait for the answers after the game. We can actually get it during the game. You can actually, you know, go in at half time and watch certain instances that have happened during the game and replay that pretty quickly. You don't have to mess about anymore. It's literally, as it happens, it's there. And I think that's made a massive difference, because what's happened over a period of time is the factor in professional sport, professional football. You're playing if you're successful, you're playing every 3 days, maybe 4 days. It's very rarely you're going to get week to week now. So I've always found the last game you've played is probably quickly in the background because the next one's coming that fast. Yeah. So the prep is all important. How do you move on? What messages are you giving out to the players now? They're all quick hits now, because you're literally playing, recovering, training a day, playing. So it's all on the move so fast now. So the technology element gives you that opportunity to plan ahead, to focus maybe 3 or 4 games ahead now, and concentrate not on the last game. Yeah, you do look at it, but you don't leave it there, you know, and too long. You just address it, get it out of the way, move on. No. And I think technology has given that opportunity to do that. Because one of the biggest killers in sport sometimes is that you dwell too much on what might have been. You know, I've learned that, you know, well, we should have done that better, that was poor, that wasn't great, that was terrific. You tend to forget a lot of that, because what's most important is what's ahead of you, not what's behind you. You learn from what's gone on behind you, but the important bit in professional sport is the next game, and the next team, and the next group of players you're going to play with, and the next group of players that are coming into your squad, that type of thing. So it's forever moving, it's fast-paced stuff.
Now, when you're looking at the analytical side, I think sometimes people call it stat padding, like there's too much focus on the stats. Yeah, someone such as yourself, where you can tell that, okay, the numbers might say this, but you might see a different image of what you've seen. Do you go with a feeling, or do you just go for, oh, well, actually, you know what, it says 0.45 here, and we'll
yeah, it's a bit difficult sometimes for me, because, like I say, I trust my eyes, and I trust my feelings, and I trust what I'm doing relates to what's going to happen. I've no, any coach that says they're in control of the situation when the game's going on is probably telling a little bit of a white lie, because you've prepared everything. What you've tried to do in your coaching and what you've tried to do in your communication skills is ensure that the players can act out and make decisions on the football field as they happen. Because if a game pans out the way you expect it to from the start, then you're pretty special, to be honest. The game evolves, the game changes, there's always challenges, and you want your players to react to those moments. So I think prep's a big thing, but the feeling of the upcoming game is your experience sometimes. It's sometimes, I've stood on that touchline and nothing's going right and your head's all fuzzy and you're not as clear thinking as you possibly think you could be. These are just natural things that happen. And sometimes you react to the moment. You'll see some coaches are quiet, some coaches are pretty volatile, some coaches are pretty calculated. From the other side of it, if you're quiet, supporters sometimes think, well, he's not really involved in it, he isn't really showing any passion and all that, but that's just the way they are made. Others are really up there, really on it, really hyped up, that I'm not so sure they're concentrating on the job in hand. You're losing yourself a little bit. You're kicking the ball as they're kicking it and you're literally off on one, So it's experience and learning a technique which suits you, I think, which is just who you are. And to be perfectly honest, you can't change who you are. And nobody's going to change who you are. It's just that emotion, that passion, that experience, that togetherness. And you do feel it. To be honest, you do feel what the players are going through. And there's not sometimes anything you can do about it. Sometimes you just know it's unfolding the wrong way in front of you and it's very difficult to change it. But you just hope, you don't hope, you coach it and you train it and you communicate it that these things happen, what you're going to do about it. So you give them that opportunity to learn and to progress, and really it all boils down to make good decisions. The more good decisions you make, the chances are you're going to be successful. And especially at the top end club, it's the least mistakes usually work out the best. And the least mistakes players make, the better they learn and the better they focus. So for us, we just encourage the players to use their talent within a structure. But really on the day, you need that element of who's got that one dynamic in the game that changes the course of the game on the field.
Now, you're not going to give us any names, so I'm going to try again, right? But maybe not any current. Why are you laughing?
He's not going to give you any names.
No, he will in this one, because this is fair. In your playing days, coming up, seeing young players come through the ranks at Man United, who impressed you the most, would you say? And you just thought, these guys.
Well, my career sort of ended when the class of '92 came on the scene.
Cheers, lads.
Yeah.
So, but I was in my 5th year then as a player at Man United. So for me, it was good and bad personally, because I knew I probably would be one of those fringe players that they may be looking to move on, and as it happens, that's what happened. But I also knew the quality that was there. Really, so what I didn't understand, and that's because as a player you only have your own fixed mindset, and you're the best out there and nobody's better. But when somebody tells you, or you see somebody that is actually not that far away from taking your shirt, it's a difficult one. It's a real difficult one, because, and it wasn't only just one. We were talking about 6 or 7 in that class of '92, so they all came through at the same time. What was really interesting was the fact that the manager went for it, and quickly, really went for it, which is totally unusual. I mean, probably never happened again that many in one hit would break into the first team. Although people think it was all done at once, but there were 2 or 3 being blooded in there at times and then taken out on another. But eventually it formed the basis of the future team.
Class of '92, Giggs was class of '91.
Yeah, it's true.
Phil never won Scholes in '93.
But they all get classed into that group of players that came through within that system. And it was, to be honest, as a player, it was a pleasure to see, actually. That I'm a big believer in youth. I like youth. I think it invigorates the older statesmen around, even myself included. We've got them now in the team. That youthful element is fearless in some respects, so they're not cautious. They just do it. They go for it. You know what I mean? There are lessons to be learnt there, but they're learning on the feet. So it's an interesting process, and I think it challenges you as a coach and manager to give them a bit of license. You know that, you know, there's going to be ups and downs. You know that for a fact. They're young. We've all been young once. You know, and we've all got in.
Who did you support growing up?
I was a Burnley lad. Me, I started my career straight from school at Burnley. So for me, I supported Burnley Football Club. You know, I stood there with my uncles and my dad and what have you, and watched, and eventually played as a 17-year-old with some of the players I was idolising at that time. You know, so for me, it was an unbelievable experience. But what was interesting at Burnley was I was a local boy, and there weren't many of them. They were always sort of scouting Northern Ireland and Newcastle and Sunderland, those areas. So for a local boy to break through was quite a step, really, just to get into that group of Geordies or that group of Irish guys. You know, you had to be accepted. So for me, it was.
And you won a title there as well.
Yeah, we won a championship, and then we got relegated. So it was a bit up and down. But I had different experiences. At that time, Burnley Football Club was terrific from a coaching point of view. I loved every minute of it. So it was a natural progression for me to go and be taught how to be a proper footballer, you know, play and pass, move and all those things. And then good managers, ex-players who were managers at the club. So Burnley was culturally a town club, but huge. Do you know what I mean? It was everything to the town. And, you know, without being disrespectful, probably the football club was the town, you know, on that day. And it still is. I think there still is that element, you know. It's grown and it's changing Burnley now, but the football club still has that heartbeat of the community. And I think that's pretty special. So for me, yeah, I'm a Burnley fan, you know, and but for me to jump to Manchester United from a kid at Burnley going to Norwich and then going to Man United, my projection was pretty cool. And all good footballing clubs I enjoyed.
You're an honorary Norwich. In fact, well, you're in the Hall of Fame, aren't you? So
yeah, I cracked that one. Yeah,
that's good.
I got that memory of Norwich, which was a great learning curve for me. Not only as a footballer, but that was the first time I left home.
Oh wow!
So I was living at home with my brother and my parents, going into Burnley, which was 8 miles away, 10 miles away, to actually then saying, ta-da, I'm off, I'm going to Norwich. And my first thought was, where's that? You know, that's Norfolk, that's the end of the world, you know, but doing it gave me those life skills, really. I grew up.
All right, we've got a little thing here called Beat the Clock.
Oh, here we go.
So we've got a series of questions. Hopefully, you're going to know these.
Probably not.
All right, then, so 60 seconds. See how many you can answer.
Let's go.
How many career goals did you score?
Probably about 6.
28.
Seriously? Oh, I'm going to tell my kids.
Who did your only England cap come against?
Italy.
Yeah. What was your biggest transfer fee?
$750.
Correct. How many trophies?
Not pounds, by the way. Yeah, £750,000.
In your career, how many trophies did you win? Playing career?
I have no idea. No idea.
Name them.
Probably the old championship, FA Cup. Well, a lot was at United, so probably about 9 or 10.
7. Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup, European Cup, Winners' Cup, Charity Shield, Second Division, Third
I thought I was better than that.
Division. In which 3 teams did your only United goals come against?
Bury,
Yep.
Shrewsbury.
No, QPR and Coventry.
All right. QPR and Coventry.
First trophy in your career?
Great goals as well, by the way.
I think you'll get this one. First trophy in your career?
That was at Burnley, I think.
Correct.
I don't know, was it the
Third
old
division.
Third Division, yeah.
Oh,
Third
we're out of
Division.
time anyway. But the next one was going to be, which club did you make most appearances for?
Norwich.
Burnley.
Was it Burnley?
What was the cup called that you was... I'm answering these. I don't care if the clock's on. I'm asking these because I think these are interesting.
Right,
but what was the cup competition called that you just missed out on playing for England due to injury? 1989.
The World Cup? In Italy?
No. The Rouse Cup.
The Rouse Cup, flipping
Yeah.
it.
Apparently it was England.
Does anybody
Scotland,
remember
some
that?
random South American team. But yeah.
I know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Was it hamstrings that stopped you from playing?
No, I didn't have many injuries. I had sort of the odd ankle ligament or something like that, and then it was only in the early part of the career when I got sort of battered around a little bit and learnt my lessons from sticking my head in where I shouldn't have done and getting it fractured.
Anyway, the question that we all wanted to ask was, who's United signing?
Everybody.
Everyone.
According to the newspapers and the media, we're signing everybody.
You got a
So,
list?
you can have that list if you want. There's a few details on there
Oh,
if you want it.
cool.
Have a good look. Keep it to yourself.
What's it say?
It says on his transfer list, 21-22 secret.
Can I see? Oh, thanks.
My writing's
I'm gonna
pretty
report
small,
it.
so there's quite a lot of names on there.
You're all right, actually, then. All right, mate. Thank you very much. I think we actually could have gone on for 3 hours.
I know, man.
This was fantastic.
No, it's been good.
Thank you so much.
But thank you very much for coming and joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Nice and chilled.
You've been great, and thank you again, Hublot, for sponsoring the show. Thank you very much, Rio Ferdinand, for sitting us down. He is our Sir Alex Ferguson when it comes to this media scene. So and it's a pleasure working with you as well, Mr. Howson. Actually, we've got to do this.
But we're all tested in, my mate.
All right,
Don't worry about
cool.
that.
Thank you very much, Mick. We'll see you soon.
There you go.
See you later. Late night vibes.
Brilliant.
Peace.